Hello, this is a video about Sydney, especially the world famous Sydney Harbour Bridge, and about, again, continuing with this series of secrets in plain sight, to borrow the phrase, and especially how occult or esoteric knowledge is in plain sight. But first we need to go to New York and to Coney Island, where there is a lunar park, which was developed and organised, run by the Phillips brothers. Lunar Park, as the name might suggest, is astronomically themed. It definitely is. Even the descriptions of it by the designers, owners, operators had astronomy as a very key theme to the park. So beyond the obvious name of it, there was a whole bunch of other, including the attractions such as Professor Wormwood's Monkey Theatre, etc. in the New York Coney Island. But now we come back to Sydney and the Anthroposophical Society, which was a breakaway from the Theosophical Society. Marion Mahony Griffin, a very important architect, married to Walter Burley Griffin. They designed Canberra, which I covered in a recent video, full of this type of knowledge and secrets. And she was American, and she had very few American friends in Australia. But among them were the Phillips brothers, who began the lunar parks in Australia. Basically every capital city, state capital had one. Only Melbourne Lunar Park and Sydney Lunar Park remain in operation. This is Melbourne Lunar Park, the same themes coming on in the so astronomically based. This is very important. But so now we are here on lovely Sydney Harbour, and across the water there we can see Sydney Lunar Park. Even the new rides and attractions in Lunar Park Sydney have the same system of hidden number and esoteric knowledge in plain sight. But I won't go into them in this video. But the themes of sun, earth, moon and stars are very much key, core elements of Freemasonry, Rosicrucians, and all these sorts of groups. So if you see, for instance, their tracing boards here, the columns which have the terrestrial and celestial sphere, the sun and the moon. So earth, moon, stars and sun, key themes to this whole system, which is based around the seven liberal arts, especially the Quadrivium, music, geometry, arithmetic and astronomy. All these iconic buildings, all the important buildings in Sydney are built on this system, and it's just not known to the general public, but it's there to be measured, it's there to be observed. The history, the architects, all these people involved, for instance, the main engineer, John Bradfield, for the Sydney Harbour Bridge was a Freemason. So throughout, you just it's on the record. It's not pulling things out of the air and trying to make connections that are not there. The connections are clear. The documentation is clear. The measurements are quite clear on this fact. So now we're going to have a look at the Sydney Harbour Bridge, and one of the world's most iconic structures, instantly recognisable. And now the question might be asked, why is the Sydney Harbour Bridge, and including the Opera House, which has the same thing happening, but the Sydney Harbour, why are they so beautiful? Why are they so memorable? Why are they so powerful images? Well, first to begin, let's look at the height of the Sydney Harbour Bridge. 440 feet, or 1/4 of a mile, but that's 1,320 hands, which is also 5,280 inches. What's more, so that's the measure, but what about the weights? Well, even the weight of the steelwork is 52,800 tons of steel. Even the amount of paint used, interestingly, is 272,000, just shy of 273,000 to do the original coats of paint. But the size of the earth in the Longfoot scale, the 1.056 feet is 1 foot. 1.506 feet is 1 Longfoot, and we see to begin with now, the Earth is described, but also 440 and 528. So the Great Pyramid of Giza, which is short. The people who were involved in this design understand this very well, and we see that the measures of the Great Pyramid correspond to what's happening here. But also the concept of New Jerusalem has Canberra is a New Jerusalem. Marion, Mahony, Griffin, Griffin and Walter Burley Griffin, the architects of Canberra. Same thing happening. So we see the description matching. So we have multiple forms, multiple hidden meanings. AMP building, the AMP Society founded by Thomas Sutcliffe Mort, a Freemason. That's 377 feet high. I'm standing next to the Opera House, which is 377 feet wide. And we'll get to that a little bit more later, but the Sydney Harbour Bridge. So the famous arches of the Sydney Harbour Bridge. So each arch is 1,650 feet, or 6,600 palms, or 19,800 inches. Well, there's something to come out of that, as we'll see. To begin with, Ionic fathom describes, and 198 describes the moon. Astronomy themed lunar park, the people connected to it, but also in the canonical foot. So 6/5 cubed feet is 1 canonical foot, and 66 with just a matter of adding zeros on the end, and we get the moon being described again. We also get the Earth being described at 66,000 ionic furlong. So again, ionic being one of the central column in Masonic tracing boards, the column of wisdom or the female column. The weight of the Earth in short tons, 66, and a whole bunch of zeros at the end, but 6,600 palms. We're also getting the Earth and the moon, but also the weight of the Earth, but also the speed of the Earth, the orbital speed of the Earth, which varies slightly, but at its slowest, 66,000 miles per hour, the orbital speed of the Earth around the Sun. So we're also now introducing the Sun, Earth, and Moon. The Sun being a star, so that's a bit of a theme as well. But the arches of the Sydney Harbour Bridge, there's 2 arches, there's not just one. So the combined length of them is 3,300 feet, or 13,200 palm, or 396,000 inches. But firstly, again, so in the long foot scale, in long yards, 132, we have the description of the equatorial diameter of the Earth. Sun, Earth, Moon, and stars. This is the theme of Lunar Park. This is the theme of the Harbour Bridge. 396, some extra zeros on the end. 39620 inches describes the combined length of both arches. Sun, Earth, and Moon. 396, 4 zeros. Ionic yards, we have the Moon. This will continue more and more, and in the videos I've covered it, all the world capitals, all these iconic buildings all across the world. You just the artists, the architects, the patrons, they're all very much connected with these occult schools, esoteric knowledge, mysticism, whatever word you really want to choose, but these people are in on it. So canonical cubits and 396 is also just as an illustration of how these numbers go together. Now the Opera House, as I mentioned, is 377 feet wide. AMP building is 377 feet long, and Mrs. Macquarie's chair is 5,280 yards and 377 yards, as well as the 5,280 also appeared earlier. But there's another important essential element here, and that's the divine proportion, the golden number, or phi. So we see how each single arch is 1,650 feet, or 550 yards. Here we have a very, very important key, a secret, concealed secret. That's the concealment of this is still happening to this day in regards to the minimization of phi by the gatekeepers. Yet this is not all. We're only only really touching the surface so far. Sun, Earth, Moon and stars. So the abutments, the foundations to hold the bridge together, to keep the arch from spreading out. Well, they are also connected to a very other important building in Sydney by a very important architect, Edmund Blackett, who I've covered before, who uses numbers such as 273, 108, 144 in all of his structures, cathedrals, university building, etc. But here we see the width of the abutments on the Sydney Harbour Bridge, Ionic and medieval royal foot being key, and St Andrew's Cathedral in Sydney, the main cathedral in Sydney, where Edmund Blackett even is interred. It's the same width as the length of there. But to begin with, in music, so G and A, 192 hertz, 432 hertz, 432, one of these very special, very special numbers. But far more than that, this is multiple forms in multiple areas. So the three-dimensional geometry, the octahedron, the all-important vesica Pisces, the hexagon from which emerges from the vesica, even the Fibonacci spiral, Fibonacci numbers 144, which again is a connection back to 5. We need to examine that a little bit further, but cycles of time. So the 24-hour day is 1440 minutes. The Mayan calendar, 144, and again, just add 3 zeros on the end. The Kali Yuga, the Satya Yuga, 432 and 1728 cycles of time, Sun, Earth and Moon. So the descriptions of the equatorial diameter of the Sun are also appearing here, 144, 432, 576, 1728. Yet, so it's not just, we've already multiple times we've just described the Earth, it's described the Moon, but also the abutments describing the Sun, and also some additional descriptions of the Moon, and these numbers being the ones so important to, well, as I just mentioned, the yugas, and so much more. Time, geometry, music, arithmetic, the list really goes on and on. But the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Ark of Utnapishtim, as 120 cubits by 120 by 120. So whether it's combined edge length, the surface area, or even the volume, so 1, 2 and 3 dimensions, these numbers are very important to describing those traditions. But in the Bible, the description in Revelations, a description of New Jerusalem. New Jerusalem's Washington, Brasilia, Canberra, Astana, 1440 and 1728, the same thing, first, second and third dimensions. So very important reinforcements, but also, so on the ionic scale, 27.3, 1 day on the Sun, 1 rotation, 27.3 days, 1 moon day, 27.3 Earth days, 1 moon year, 27.3. So a sidereal lunar orbit, which is a relationship of Earth, Moon and star. And we're going to start introducing so it's Sun, Earth, Moon and the stars. And here we start to see it really goes really deep, but 27.3, so the Moon is 27.3% the size of the Earth. The barycenter, the point at which the Moon orbits the Earth, it doesn't travel around the center, it goes around the barycenter, and that's 27.3% below the surface of the Earth, or 5,000 kilometers, or 1,000 miles, with this slight variation as the various gravitational forces sort of ebb in and out. More importantly, that's so 109.333 cubits. The diameter of the Sun times 109.333 is the distance from Sun to the Earth. The diameter of the Earth times 109.333 is the diameter of the Sun. Sun, Earth and Moon in multiple, so time, one-dimensional distances, the proportions of size to each other, it really carries on. And so again, now standing back just underneath and to the side of the Sydney Harbour Bridge, across in the distance there you can see Luna Park, astronomically themed once again, Sun, Earth and Moon. So there's another reference to the cycle of precession here, and a very lovely one, very cunningly concealed. And to understand that, we have to stand really underneath the bridge itself, and the width of the deck 161 feet, the height of the deck above water at the standard tide level. So the tides will go in and out, but the ideal tide being 161 feet. 161 times 161, 25,921 square feet. Precession, the cycle of the great year, precession of the equinoxes, 25,920 years. Again, it varies out, so 25,921 is as good as you're going to get. So from Coney Island in New York, the astronomically themed lunar park, sun, earth, moon and the stars, Freemasons, the Anthroposophical Society, other esoteric organisations and thinkings, these key architects, all coming together and making this iconic structure, this world-known, world-famous, instantly recognisable structure. Literally, it's a temple of the sun, the earth, the moon and the stars, and other the Quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, astronomy and music, all expressed, encoded, in plain sight, for all to see, but for only those few who are willing to seek to understand and want to read what's happening here. The golden number, whether it's in first, second, third, fourth dimensions, and expressed in time, expressed through weights and measures, reflecting old traditions, old religions, all appearing over and over. It's undeniable, it's measurable, it's there, and as I've shown with other videos, it's repeated across the world. Washington, Brasilia, Canberra, Paris, London, New York, pretty much any great city you care to mention, all has it in here. But for instance, another important factor, the number 528, 33 and 32 should be instantly recognisable as especially connected to the Scottish rite of Freemasonry, which connects to 528, the rod, the mile, but also triangular numbers, the tetragrammaton, the 32nd triangular number, very much linked to the tetragrammaton, is 528. And so there you have it. That's most of it, not quite all. There's, as with these things, there's always more to be investigated and found, but the Sydney Harbour Bridge, it's a temple of sun, earth, moon and stars. Have a good one.
My city of Sydney, I miss the warmth of you. Tommy, miss the heart of your people, that little church steeple in Woolloomooloo. I've never been